All right. Well, thank you all for that stimulating start to the conversation. There are a couple things that hit me at the end um, that I think it's important to unpack, or at least name. One um, is the sacredness of bodies. That our bodies are ourselves,
Yeah.
and so Shanterra, you use the word violation, which may feel um, strong to some
Yeah.
people, but I think we need to reinforce that.
Yeah.
Um, to touch another person's body in any way, uh, unwelcome, uninvited.
Yeah.
How about that? Uninvited is a violation of the whole person. We Our bodies are ourselves. They're not our whole selves, but they're an integral part of us. And so this is a really important thing we need to.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that back up because I think there is a difference in, I remember growing up and going to sleepovers, and one of the things you play with each other's hair. I oh my gosh, every summer since this
Yeah,
summer
that was not my world, but
yeah,
I'm
well,
with you for a while.
for girls, or they will probably, or people with long hair, they can get this. And I think it's one of those things that when I think of summer camp, when I think of just young people being away, and that is when you ask questions as children, that is when you do braid and play and touch and feel and all that. And that for me happened as a little girl. I remember going to Girl Scout camp. That I remember even at Girl Scout camp, a girl asked me, why is my nose like this? And she was a white girl, and I was one of three black girls at the whole camp for the whole week. And I didn't know the answer. I was just like, I was 10. And so I remember writing a letter to my mom. And, as I'm at camp, like, hey, camp is going great. Oh, by the way, why is my nose like this? And my mom getting the note, like, where are you? What is happening? But as little girls, you got to ask each other those questions, and it wasn't considered racist. It was curiosity.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, for our audience to make overt to it, what is implied there is a standard of nose type, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
My nose was
somehow,
different.
right?
Right.
A slender nose
Mm-hmm.
is standard, like
Mm-hmm.
that's normal, and your nose somehow deviates from that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In one of our very early conversations with a good friend of ours, Darnell Saint Romain, he gave us this image of whiteness is like that's the blank piece of paper.
Sure.
And what he's trying to do as a black man is find his place on the paper, to get on the paper.
Mm.
So and I'm not talking about like white because it's a white piece of paper, that we could unpack that, but just this idea that there's a blank piece of paper and that's like normal baseline from where we start,
Foundation. Mm-hmm.
right? Foundation. That's
Mm-hmm.
whiteness, and everything deviates. Everything
Mm-hmm.
that's put onto that works. That is what we're talking about here.
Right.
So there's a standard for noses, and yours isn't the standard, and
Right.
so on. And so that raises one of the other issues that we haven't named, which is related topics, is exoticism.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons that your hair is like
Attractive to people to touch.
right, an
Yes.
object because it has a sense of exoticism to those women, I assume, like she was curious, right? Which in itself again implies there's normal, and things that get further away from normal are exotic.
Right.
So dreads, exotic.
Mm-hmm.
Braiding or weaving, exotic,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
Although then you raise the concept of co-opting, that then
Mm-hmm.
these things get co-opted back into white culture. So you wanted to say more about that.
Yeah, no, I'll just say a little bit, because I think that, we can unpack. I think when you talk about the standard, so Eurocentric beauty is the standard, and when I say standard, I think of mainstream. And so with mainstream, anything else added then becomes this other. But in my world, it is the standard, even though I know I'm up against what the majority of the world, or especially when you think of an industry, the beauty industry, white people are the standard. And so when I think about how there are certain celebrities who like to put on Black culture, whether it's braiding their hair in cornrows going straight to the back, and then whether it's wearing darker makeup, whether it's changing the lighting for a photo shoot, looking at the photo knowing they look darker than what they really is, and not saying anything about it, even though they have the power to do so, because they like to look exotic when it is convenient, but then also taking it off when it isn't convenient. So taking it off if they want to get on the cover of a certain magazine. But also depending on if that is, it's February and it's Black History Month. So maybe they do want to look Black for that moment. And so when I look at that, when I look at certain entertainers and celebrities being able to put on and off my culture, that is racist to me. That is offensive to me, because you're doing it for the likes for social media, but you don't want to live in it. I forget who said it, but someone brilliant said, it's akin to you wanting the rhythm, but you don't want my blues.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you want it for the life, and not just celebrities and entertainers. There's this whole thing on social media, this whole movement of fishing. It just left my brain, but this idea of white girls putting on darker foundation to look Black, and then teasing their hair, and so making it curly or crunching it and making it to look biracial, or to look like a light-skinned Black girl, again for the likes and for the looks. But when they take all of that off, it's a regular white girl. But for the likes, and again, it's this idea that Blackness is sexy when it's convenient.
Mm.
Right.
But again, I don't want to walk in that every day, though.
I wonder, Shanterra, if you can talk a little bit about how these Eurocentric beauty standards affect teenagers, young women, especially of color.
And I mean, and Sara, when I think about wearing makeup for the first time, I mean, I grew up in a household where we couldn't wear makeup. I was not allowed to wear makeup until I was 18. Thankfully, I got to wear it for the prom. Not so thankful because I looked crazy because I couldn't wear it. So my mom doesn't wear makeup. So it was this idea of, I mean, I look bad. Green dress, and just imagine everything else had to match. And so when I think about teenagers, and when I travel and ask any group of girls, describe for me what must a girl look like, act like, and be who has high social status, and it never fails, the words pretty come up. And I'm like, okay, let's break pretty down. Long hair, sometimes they'll say blonde hair, sometimes they'll say long hair for sure. They'll say pretty eyes, and I say, okay, tell me what that means. So they'll say blue, and this is this could be in an all white environment or a mixed race environment. They'll talk about curves, but not too curvy. So you should have great breast and a great butt, but a really, 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 really tiny waist. Or not such a big bust, but definitely a booty, or maybe not a booty, like it just all these variations. But you have to be thin. And when I think about, I'm like, I think I was thin in the 3rd grade. I mean, it's just, it's just no, and it's not even. I mean, I don't even use that word. That's not even a word in my thin. It's not a word in my family, right? Because but the drawback to that is when you look at Black and brown communities, our communities have a higher rate of diabetes, a higher rate of heart disease, a higher, because our food and our lack of exercise and what we have access to. So when you look at this standard of beauty for teenage girls is to be thin and have long hair and to be able to wear certain brands. That's another thing when it comes to beauty. Brands, I can't go into any store and buy a pair of jeans. Like it's just not going to happen. And that part of that is age, thankfully. But another part is my body is not, I can't go pull a pair of jeans off a rack. It's just not without 50 being on the floor. Like it's just not happening. So again, when you think about the standard of beauty, the models that they're choosing, the baseline isn't a girl who looks like me. And the people going down the wrong ways, it's a thing. It's like that designer gets a show if the majority of their models are Black or the majority of their models are brown, or if the models get to wear their natural hair. Like it becomes a story because it isn't the standard.
So can I ask a really, this is a very ignorant question.
For me or for Sara?
Both. I
Okay.
mean, I think both of you could contribute to this because, I mean, I'm obviously a male. So I'm asking for all of those other ignorant males out there. This is my job. It's my impression now, Sara, or I mean, you can, or my wife will correct me, but it's my impression that when a white woman puts on foundation, that the goal is generally to make her skin darker. Like I don't see many white women putting on foundation to make their skin look more white, like pearl, you see this particularly in older women, right? They're like trying to make their skin look dark.
Go, Sara. Go.
Okay.
Go, Sara, go.
I would say that, like, technically, if we're talking about makeup, foundation should be as close to your skin color as possible, and then it kind of like makes you a canvas, right? And then you would put blush on over for like you're painting the color back into your cheeks, right? And then they also have something called bronzer, right, which would add like a tan to you. So the idea being that you could artificially recreate the planes of your face and what you want. There's a type of bronzer called contour, and it's basically creating artificial cheekbones, right? So if you see my face does not have a lot of natural, I have like the really, really large, cute cheeks, right? So when I'm trying to create Euro-centric beauty ideals and look thinner, I can basically paint on cheekbones here, and that makes my face kind of look up. I could put some down here. I could like reshape the dimensions of my face to be more less round, more pleasing, I guess, to what conventional beauty expects. Now, I'm kind of a weird one, and I'm the first to admit this one out here, that like when quarantine started, I shaved my head. This is grown out shaved head because I've always wanted to do that, and I feel like when you work in the beauty industry, so much is artifice and facade and who you present yourself to be more than who you are, and I hate that. And even though I'm wearing makeup right now, I'm wearing makeup that I like for me. I'm not adding extra. You can see I'm not adding extra levels to my face that that I would maybe for work or for a professional presentation, because I don't feel like you should have to. And so I want to, and in talking about like Euro-centric beauty standards, right? We pressure women. We say, like, no, your face has to look a certain way. You have to do a certain thing, because that's what everyone is doing. And makeup trends change, right? I think now the thing is bright eyeshadow because most people are wearing masks, right?
Yeah.
So decorating this area is important because it's your self-expression, right? But I'm a firm believer that makeup should be creative, right? It should be you expressing you how you want to express you. But there is this huge movement, and the way I grew up was very like, you have to put stuff on your face in an order and a thing in a way and fit in with those trends in that society. And that's like, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's an optional thing, right? It's like, it should be optional. It shouldn't be like, oh, you look tired, right?
You didn't put your face on today. Yeah.
It's just silly. Like it's, and I think also too, you talk about there's a financial component to it, right? That if you can spend anywhere from $1 to, gosh, what are Tom Ford lipsticks nowadays? They're like crazy. They're like over $50, right? Gucci lipsticks, right? You can spend anywhere from $1 to $50, and your mileage may vary as to what that turns out to be on your face. But it's a very classist thing, I think. It can be these beauty procedures, and if you spend the money to dye your hair, right? What does that amount to, right? How does that all factor in? And I think class is like super important to understand when you're unpacking this, because because you could go anywhere. There's that huge continuum of what you can put on your face and what you can do with it and what you feel like you need to do.
Yeah. And Sarah, something you said earlier about just the time that people put into, because I'm thinking, Heather, back to your question about teenagers. Oftentimes when girls talk about the standard of beauty, excuse me, and this pretty long hair, thin, all that kind of stuff, it's also supposed to be effortless. Like, you are not supposed to have to put in any work or effort in this. But at the same time, they want to know what brand are you using and what brand, so this class, but effortless look, this natural look, even though it's a lot of work that goes into it, like, it's all supposed to just be like Beyonce, I woke up like this.
Yeah, no one actually wakes up like
only
that.
Beyonce, maybe.
Only Beyonce.
But somebody else is having to put in the work. But it's this idea that if it's beauty, it's supposed to be natural, and you're not supposed to have to work for it. And I think part of the part of this beauty standard that we have going on here is that it is effort. I often think about even people who decide not to shave. I remember being in high school and this whole conversation, because again, Black women didn't grow up shaving our legs. It was just like not a thing. And so in high school is when you start having, because again, sleepovers and getting closer. And so if you didn't shave, it was like, oh gosh, it was like you were unclean. And same thing, I remember being in college and women, and of course, during the women's movement, this was a big deal that white women especially were like going against not shaving and, and not shaving under their arms or their legs. And it was just like this rebellion, because the standard was clean, clean legs, clean underarms, clean chin, clean neck, get old. And, these things. But and again, it's this standard that it's all done in secret, but it is the standard that women are going for. When it comes to men, I think men have the same, it's not, I don't think the industry costs as much as it does for women, but I think men have their own secrets of what standards are. And again, when I think about Black men, especially, I think it is this idea that it is something that they can be looked at, especially if they're handsome or if they're sexy or if they're considered a superstar. But I don't think there's the same discussion around the standard of beauty or acceptance or desire that it is when it comes to Black women.
Yeah, I think that in the idea of a male-dominated society, especially when it comes to beauty standards, like we've been talking about, men have it a little bit easier. But I do think that one of the things I was thinking about as I was considering John's question is thinking about what assumptions are made about muscular or large Black men and assumptions that are made about muscular or large white men. And of course, this goes into a different topic that we're going to talk about at some point in time in all of this, but, generally fearing,
Absolutely.
You change the side of the street you're walking down when you see a big Black guy walking towards you.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about facial hair. So white facial hair and Black facial hair, I mean, they're very different, obviously, in the way that they
grow.
Grow, right. And I'm trying to think of the number of white facial hair configurations that would be considered threatening or scary.
Mutton chops spoke about it.
But there are many. I mean, a Black man has to wear facial hair in a way that really mimics whiteness in order to not look threatening, right? Otherwise, it's urban, it's hood, it's gang, it's it's some other. It has some other
threat.
Threat.
It's a threat. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, which is so crazy to me because when I think about, even this whole Euro-centric beauty, the standard of beauty, it can also be said as the standard of safety, because what you're looking for is someone clean shaven, clean cut, clean that, which equals white. And if that is not in place, I when it comes to going in for an interview, getting a job, being able to walk down the street, being in an elevator. Like I remember I've heard numerous men, friends of mine, who the goal is to not scare white people today. So whether that's in a smile, pre-mask, or even with the face covering, whether that's with, disarming them or doing whatever it is leaving the house thinking the goal is to not scare white people today. And when I think of being able to move and breathe through the world, and that doesn't even cross your mind, that is a privilege like I've never heard.
Right. So you bring up a very good point. There's a continuum here that moves away from whiteness as a standard of safety, and the further away you get from the less safe experience.
For some people. Because that's not my experience.
Right. But you did bring up something earlier that is this idea of effortlessness and work. So if you are, the closer you are to the beauty standard, the less effort you have to exhibit. The further you are from the beauty standard, the more you have to work.
So more effort. You have to.
Now we have, since work is tied to slavery, I'm not saying this is a form of slavery, but it is. There's an irony here. It's not irony. That we are forcing work upon people who don't, right? The further they are, do you see what I'm saying here?
I shouldn't have to. That is the oppression, is that it is a forced labor.
Right.
Right. So, forced labor to have to do something. Yeah, go ahead, Sara.
We're putting pressure on you to do that. That we're feeling that, it's that standard, and there's certain brands of things where their whole marketing strategy is like, you're already gorgeous, this is barely anything. Right. Then why do I need to buy it? Because if I'm already gorgeous, like you say I am, why do I need something that's essentially clear? Yeah. Right? And it's that whole idea of that marketing that all beauty tries to sell you, this lie that like, oh well, if you buy this, you'll be prettier, you'll be better, people will love you, society will embrace you the way that they embrace everybody who has clear skin,
or straight hair, or because I think when it comes to just the Black women and this idea, when I think of when my hair is not braided and it's a curly fro. And I know that had this been the 70s or the 80s, like when I think of Angela Davis and her fro and then all the Black Panthers, I often think, would I have been a Black Panther or would I have been in SNCC? Like which, and I think yes, because depending on the day, I would have wanted to have my leather jacket and my rifle and my fro, or I would wanted to have been more nonviolent. But I think that whole standard of beauty, that standard of safety, when I think about the Black Panthers, and they were, the afros, and just the not caring. And it was about not being forced to have this standard of safety, this look of safety, because we're wearing our hair the way it naturally grows out of our head, without any products to straighten it, without any products to relax it, without any products to texturize it because it already has texture. That idea of being able to exist without the extra made them unsafe.
It's powerful. It's so powerful to just wake up and be like, no, I'm already great. That I don't need to change who I am because I'm already this awesome human. And that pressure, that artificial societal pressure is just garbage.
Yeah, so I think this is a really important point in terms of the overt-covert functioning, because when we hear people say today, well, slavery was hundreds of years ago, you haven't been slaves for generations, there's no, what we're not acknowledging is that we have forced the work onto you just in covert forms.
Yes, because if I resist it, I am unsafe.
Yes, because if you don't do the work to conform, then you are a threat.
Yes.
And I think that's, folks out there, friends, we need to sit with this for a little bit, okay? Don't gloss over this. That what I'm asking you to do, not the people on the call. I'm talking to you in the camera. We're almost out of time again, Shanterra, but you mentioned Marvelous University. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, really quickly. It is,
It sounds marvelous.
Say that again?
It sounds marvelous.
Oh, absolutely. If you go to marvelousuniversity.com, you'll see all about it. You'll see how I partner with parents, how I partner with schools, churches, organizations who work with young people, who think they work with young people, but not sure. Even if you're an organization or a company with parents, I think it is all our responsibility to remind young people they were born to be marvelous. And that is what I get to do. But if you go to marvelousuniversity.com, you'll see more.
I love that.
Thank you. Thanks, Sara.
So cool.
That's really cool. I love it a lot.
It sounds almost biblical.
It is. I think it is.
Well, I did name it after a scripture, Psalms 139, verse 14, that said, "Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous." And when I believe that for myself, that I didn't have to put on all this extra stuff and to do all these extra things, that I'm a workmanship of God, and that means that I'm already marvelous. I believe that if we as people get to be reminded of that, we can change everything.
Amen.
I think that's a perfect tie to what we talked about today. I think that it is scriptural. If we are all made in the image of God, just as we are, even without makeup or shaving or hair color or full heads of hair or
not the shaving
or muscles. Well, I mean, I like beards, but that's
right. Yeah.
If we really live into the fact that God created each and every one of us unique in God's image, then
even black people?
Even black people.
Gosh, including
actually right, like
yes.
including all and everybody.
Yes.
Then there's the standard of beauty is God, right? we don't actually have to work toward.
Yeah, doesn't the standard of beauty actually have to include everyone?
Right.
Including me with my hair challenge.
Absolutely.
And you shouldn't have to paint fake cheekbones to be
Amen.
I mean, if you want to, fine.
If you want to, but but not at the expense of excluding or making fun of or violating somebody else.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And being able to appreciate, I think the thing that I really try, and like we were talking about before, you know, if I was to see somebody, you know, and I just really liked the way that they wore their hair or the dress that they chose to wear or whatever, I'm going to appreciate them for how they are presenting themselves, not as an expectation of it being exotic but just that they are being their true self in that moment. And I think that the more that we can do that and the less we can see it as a benefit for our own consumption, the closer we will be to recognizing God's beauty everywhere.
And the appropriate way to honor that is to say, hey, you look awesome, and then continue walking.
Hey, you look marvelous.
You look marvelous.
You look marvelous.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you to all marvelous people.
Yeah.
The marvelous people on the call today and the marvelous people who have been and will be watching.
Thank y'all for having us. I love this, and I encourage y'all again to keep. Texan just came out to keep the conversation going, and I think that is how we are going to heal this world, is by conversing and keeping it, even when they're hard, just keeping them going.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, our time is at a close. I thank you each, Shanterra and Sara, for your time today. And we wish you each peace on your journey.
Thank you.
Cool. Peace.